Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. Hello there. Hello, Daniel. I've been doing just fine. Thank you so much. I'm rather used to doing the online instruction now. Been teaching online, for Norco College, and then also for, the high school back when the COVID first hit. So pretty comfortable with this. Also, it's nice to be doing it from work rather than from my house. I don't know, just something about being in the classroom that's favorable. About 9:05 right now. We'll get started in about 3 minutes. Let's see here. All right. Hello. All right, folks. Well, I'm going to go ahead and, well, actually, we only have 8 people in here. Maybe I should wait another minute. My guess is that probably a handful of folks clicked on the link for the first lecture. All right, well, I am going to get started because I'm on limited time, and I basically went the whole time with period 1. So let's, that's fine, no worries. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. First of all, my name is Mr. Knight. I'll be your AP European History teacher this semester, well, the whole year, I guess. And I wanted to start off talking about a couple of things here that probably maybe for you a little bit inconvenient or different from your other classes. But I wanted to take a minute to talk to you about some of this stuff, about why I'm doing things the way that I'm doing things, and you know, ask for your patience throughout the year. Well, at least for, you know, the period of time that we're in the remote instruction, doing things the way that we're doing them right now. So, you know, I've been teaching a long time, and when I was a first-year teacher here at Roosevelt, teachers will sometimes say, how many preps do you have? And they're not referring to their prep period. They're talking about how many courses do they have to prepare on a day-by-day basis. When I first started here at Roosevelt, I taught 5 sections of the same class. So even though I had 5 classes, they were all just one prep. It was the same class, and it was regular psychology. That was my first year here at Roosevelt. I have 4 preps at the high school and 2 preps at Norco College. So I have 6 preps, which means that I have 6 different classes at any given time that I'm preparing for. And that's a lot of work, all right? So the reason that we're doing things the way that we're doing things is because I need to keep my professional life as organized and as structured as possible to be able to do my job efficiently. I understand that most teachers are using Google Classroom, all right? There's a few simple reasons that I am not using Google Classroom, and it's not because I have anything against it. It's perfectly fine. I would be using it if my job wasn't as difficult as it is this semester. Canvas auto-populates the class. You don't have to fool around with classroom codes or, you know, that sort of thing. The other thing is I teach at Norco College. Norco College mandates that I use Canvas. I'm not allowed to use Google Classroom at Norco College. And so being that that's the case, I want to keep all of my professional business in one location so that I'm not constantly switching between platforms and classes in order to do my job. Okay, so that's why we're using Canvas instead of Google Classroom. It's not that I particularly love Canvas per se. It's just that it's for the sake of simplicity, for doing my job in an efficient manner that's what we're going to do. Also, I understand that a lot of teachers use Zoom. All right, again. All right, I have nothing against Zoom. I use Zoom all the time, and I have been using Zoom obviously since the COVID hit. But you know, you guys are in 10th grade. There are student privacy concerns, your minors, also Zoom with recording, and then I would have to edit out student voices and all this other stuff. It's just way too much. It complicates things way more than it needs to be. All right. I don't need to see you to do my job, but you need to see me to do my job. And so we're just going to use YouTube Live, and it'll be YouTube Live every time. There's another couple of advantages to YouTube Live. Number one, the links never change. So let's say that you miss a class. You know, I've posted the link for period 3, and, you know, for whatever reason you're sick or, you know, at a doctor's appointments or whatever it is, and you can't make the lecture, you'll still be able to go back onto Canvas. That link will be the same. You'll be able to watch it, stop, rewind, fast forward, do whatever you need to do in order to watch it. And again, it's still interactive. I am live in my classroom right now. You can see the clock behind me is 9:13 a.m. Right? It's interactive because you're able to chat with me here and ask questions if you have them or whatever else. But we're just going to use YouTube Live. It's just easier, right? And you reduce any sort of student liability issues. Also, I wouldn't expect that there would be any problems in an AP European history class, to be honest with you, because usually the AP kids have a tendency to be a little bit better behaved and stuff like that. But, in particular, you're dealing with sophomores at the high school, and it reduces the chance for knuckleheads to put up inappropriate backgrounds on Zoom or say dumb things or whatever else. I don't want to be dealing with any headaches like that. So we're doing YouTube Live, and it'll stay YouTube Live the entire time that we do remote instruction. So I have a whole lot of things that I need to talk about today. But before we get into all that, I will be taking attendance each day that we do a live lecture with one another. And so the way that I'm going to take attendance today, it's kind of a goofy thing. I don't have a ton of time to do it, but I will be reading through some of your responses here. I'd like everyone in here from period 3. Now, if you're from a different class, or if you're not in AP Euro, you don't have to respond. It will probably just confuse me because you won't be on my roll list. But if you are in period 3 AP Euro, what I'd like to have you do right now is type in the chat box, and your name should pop up, so I should know who it is. If you have a different username and your name isn't listed, then make sure that you tell me who you are so that I can put you down that you attended class today. Here's how we're going to take attendance. I'm just going to have everybody all at once. I'm not going to go one by one. That's going to take a bunch of time. Keep in mind too that the live lecture is on a 30-second delay. All right, so as I'm talking to you, you don't hear it until about 30 seconds after I do. But here's the instruction: is I would like you to tell me something that I should know about you. Anything that you want to share. Could be favorite food, could be sports you like, could be this, that, the other, something you did over the COVID, whatever, something you love, something you hate, really anything to tell me just a little bit about something of yourself. Type that into the chat, of course, make sure that it's appropriate. Anything that you want me to know, something unique about you. Wow, a chameleon, lizard, 2 birds, and a dog. You've got a full-blown zoo at your house. That's cool. 3 birds and a dog. A lot of pets here. I like building things with Legos. Wow, okay. That's cool. I used to love Legos as a kid. Vinyl records. That's cool. That's unique. Vinyl records. All right. Play piano. First language was Spanish. Cool. Nice. 4 dogs and 3 cats, and you're allergic to all of them. That must be something else. Oh yeah. Star Wars poster in the background. Thank you. Yeah. I am at the high school right now. Let's see here. Played trumpet. Got a bunch of musicians in the last class. That was really something. Cool. All right. Well, if you are here, please do say something about yourself, and I will go back through and make sure that that I get this all turned in. Rhea has been suddenly obsessed with Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton's one of the most interesting. We don't really talk about him in AP Euro. He's more of a U.S. history guy, but probably one of the most important figures who didn't serve as president in early U.S. history. Robotics for the year. That's cool. Robotics for 3 years. I have asthma. Well, okay. Sorry to hear that. I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to respond to that. That's fine though. Very good. Well, thank you all for saying something about yourself. Not that I'm going to remember any of this, because there's a lot of things that I see and hear and say on a regular basis. But I do appreciate you saying something. We'll probably do a little activity like that to take attendance as we go throughout the semester here doing remote learning. All right, so today, moving forward, a few things that we need to discuss. So I'm going to be moving rather quickly through some things. I wanted to make you aware of some stuff here. First of all, first things first. So here's the deal. Last year, the schedule for just the Bell schedule in general, teachers and students changed. And last year, because the Bell schedule changed, what this did is it created a scenario where I had fewer instructional minutes to get through the same amount of content that I've been teaching for a while now. And this year, the Bell schedule changed again, and I have even fewer instructional minutes than I did before. This is going to put a major emphasis on us being diligent about using time appropriately, because there's a whole lot of things that I need to get through in AP Euro. Today's checklist of things, I have a number of different things that I'm going to be going through here, a list in front of me. We're going to be going over the syllabus to give you some ideas about the class and what to expect. I'm going to be talking about a number of different things pertaining to important info, basically. Now, today we are not going to be talking too much about the actual content of history. I might touch barely on the tip of the iceberg on some historical stuff. Mostly today is to introduce you to me, introduce you to the class, give you an idea of what to expect going forward, you know, make sure that there's no like hidden aces up the sleeves. You know, I want you guys to feel comfortable going in, like here's kind of how the thing is going to proceed and what to expect from the class and stuff like that. So, and I'm going to try and keep things nice and structured, nice and predictable for you. Keep in mind that I know a lot of other teachers are using these crazy different tech things and stuff like that. All of that's wonderful, and it'd be stuff that I would probably be using too if I didn't teach 6 different preps and 8 different classes, okay? My schedule's extremely impacted. Couple of things to remind you about. If you want to contact me, please make sure that you send me a message on Canvas, okay? If you send me a message on Canvas, it separates it from my email, and it's more likely that it won't get buried in the 6,000 other emails that I receive on a daily basis that are mostly useless, all right? Send me a message on Canvas if you have an issue that you need to talk about. I am going to set up a remind for the class and other stuff like that. I haven't set it up yet. There's been a lot of things that I've had to do. I only got my teaching assignment less than a week ago. I have classes on my schedule that I wasn't expecting to teach. It's going to be intense. There will be a calendar for the class. Once again, I didn't know the Bell schedule until pretty recently, and so I don't have the calendar made yet. But there will be a calendar made available to you very soon. And again, it will be put on Canvas, and you'll be able to go through and see where we're at. Until that point, I'll be making sure that you're on track and that you know what we're doing day to day, what's expected, when things are due. And I'll talk more about that as we get into the syllabus. So right now, I don't have a calendar, but there will be a calendar. All right. Also today, we're going to be talking about the AP exam and some other things like that, and kind of other nuts and bolts. So let's jump straight into it. Now, if you want to take a look and follow along with me here, go ahead and open up the Canvas tab that says Syllabus, and you'll see that I posted the syllabus in there. There should be a link. Alternatively, it is also available in the files and links tab or section, but go ahead and pull up the syllabus, and I am going to pull up the syllabus over here as well. I will keep the question bar open on the right so that I am able to see if you ask any questions or whatever as we go through this. All right. As I said, I'm going to be moving through this relatively quickly, but let's get started. Okay, so couple things. Office hours. Now, if you really need office hours and you need like one-on-one individual help or something like that, we can schedule that. All right. I'm not going to be doing a set like from 3 to 4 p.m. I'm going to be just going on Zoom or something like that and waiting for people to arrive. I suspect that the live lectures that we're doing and so on should probably be sufficient for you. However, if you do need individualized attention, I'm happy to meet with you. Just understand that there's a few things to keep in mind about that. Number one, I need to make it available to other students. All right. So if we schedule something, I will probably invite others in so that they are in on the meeting and stuff. And also Wednesdays work really badly for me. Okay, Wednesdays are like my hardest day of the week. They aren't yet, but they will be once the semester starts at Norco College. On Wednesdays, I teach basically from 7 in the morning all the way up until 9 p.m. at night. So Wednesdays are not going to be a good day for me to meet. If you need to have individualized attention, send me a message. We can talk about it. I might even be able to address your concerns just through a message. Okay. But again, please send that message to me on Canvas so that it separates it from all of the other minutia on my regular email address, and I will get back to you. Give me time. Give me time to get back to you. If you send me a message at 8 p.m., don't be expecting that I'm going to get back to you at 8:03 p.m. Okay. It might happen if it's just lucky, but for the most part, if you send me a message and I'm not at work, I'm probably not going to respond to it until I go back to work. Okay, so if I respond to you the next morning or something, that's about the soonest I'm going to be able to get back to you. All right, textbooks. You do need a textbook for the class. I understand that a lot of you are not able to pick up your textbook until Monday. I learned that only just about an hour ago. All right, as such, the reading assignment that I'm going to give you later on in class today, I am going to take pictures of the textbook. I actually already took them, but I have to adjust them and put them into a PDF. And then I will put that onto Canvas. You will have the reading assignment, and you will also have questions to answer with that reading assignment. And that will be how we go about doing that. I'll explain more about that later. Okay, but do get the textbook. You need a physical textbook. There's a lot of studies that show, I understand that I know that there's an online textbook. You do need a code to get it. I don't have codes for it. Can you contact the publisher and maybe they'll give you one? Sure, I don't know, maybe. Would you have to pay for it? Probably. My point is this. A lot of studies show that if you're reading stuff digitally, whether it's on a tablet and you're scrolling or on your phone and scrolling or on a screen, you do not retain the information as well. I strongly suggest that you get a physical textbook because it forces you to actually have a physical object in front of you and you can, take notes and whatever you need to do. Although don't mark up your book. Keep them nice. All right. But do get a textbook. The primary source readers, you don't have to worry about that. They don't even have them in the textbook office, so you wouldn't even be able to get them if you wanted to. Any primary source readings that we do in here, I will supply to you on Canvas in like a PDF format or something like that. So don't worry about the primary source readers. There's just certain things that I have to do for a syllabus to put that on there. Okay, scrolling down on the first page of the syllabus there, hopefully you have it pulled up in front of you. You can follow along as I do this. 6 major themes. I'm going to kind of gloss over this a little bit. Not that they're not important. These are content themes, okay? These are themes that will pop up again and again and again throughout the class. They're kind of big idea things that help you contextualize the class. They help you make sense of the order that stuff happens in. Themes that are recurring, okay, throughout the entire course. So they're good to keep in the back of your mind, but actually probably you'll only start to recognize the themes once we get further into the class. That's why I'm not talking too much about them today, but I'm required to put it in my syllabus for College Board because it's an AP class, and that's why they're in there. Okay, 6 historical thinking skills. Moving on down to the next page here. This AP European History course was redesigned just a handful of years ago, and the class is now much more structured around developing skills. Now, a lot of times kids don't look at history as a science because history is a class that they look at as a humanities course or something like that. And to be honest with you, history really isn't a science per se. It's not, you're not dealing with a set of repeatable variables or an experiment or something like that where you're able to replicate your experiment to derive results. With history, we're stuck with Occurrences that happen one time only. Despite that thing that history repeats itself, the fact of the matter is that while we might see things that thematically happen over again, it's not a controlled scientific experiment. However, I would still consider history to be a class that perhaps even more than a scientific class, like bio or something, requires you to be a scientific thinker, okay? Even though you're not applying the scientific method to history per se, it still requires you to think very analytically, perhaps more analytically, because you're dealing with variables, you're dealing with evidence, some of which is stronger, some of which might be weaker, in order to make sense of our past, okay, of human history. So these 6 historical thinking skills are going to be skills that you develop as the class goes on to help you become a more analytical thinker, somebody who is able to weigh the value of evidence, somebody who's able to look at an argument and point out flaws, somebody who's able to identify patterns of continuity throughout time, patterns where those continuities perhaps break up and change over time. Comparison is a huge part of history, to compare not only people, but events or eras or art or whatever from different periods in history. Contextualizing is another major skill that we will use a whole lot in this class, to be able to look at a name and a year and say, based on what I know about this guy or this year, or even just like the fact that he has a German sounding name and what was going on in Germany at that time, you start to be able to build a little bit of a periphery of evidence or understanding surrounding something that gives you a better opportunity to make sense of what you're looking at, right? If somebody's writing, for example, a sermon, like let's say a priest is writing a sermon in the 1500s, late 1500s, you might be able to derive other information that isn't physically written on the page just because you know the context of what religious history was like in the 1500s, which had a whole lot of divisiveness between Catholicism and Protestantism and that kind of thing. All right, so contextualization is kind of being able to paint a picture of knowledge surrounding something without having to be deliberately told, oh, this is what was going on at that time, and this is how we can go about making sense of it. So contextualization is a huge skill that we utilize. Not to mention argumentation and use of evidence. As we go throughout this class, you're going to be doing a lot of reading and a lot of writing. Now, I know that the fad in education, particularly recently, has been to introduce a whole bunch of tech stuff, fun tech things, fun tech activities, and so on and so forth. And all that stuff is great, and I'm not slighting it at all. Okay, I think it's fantastic. I think it's creative. I think it's fun. But at the end of the day, all right, at the end of the day, to be a successful student, you need to know how to read and how to write. Now, I asked you guys things that you guys were into. Last class, I had a lot of kids telling me I'm into whatever, playing violin, playing piano, you name it, all sorts of different things, okay? Playing video games, whatever it is. Anything that you pick up for the first time, a sport, a hobby, art, you name it. No one, very few people, I won't say no one, but very few people are just magically gifted and can sit down and be a virtuoso their first time picking up a violin, all right? Writing and reading are no different than that, all right? They take time to practice and hone your skills. And I can tell you that as you go throughout this class, you will be deliberately honing your skills. I'm going to give you stuff that is going to be difficult. Okay, it's going to be difficult, and it'll probably be confusing. And maybe the first or second time you read it, you don't understand it entirely. Maybe you come across words that you don't understand, or that you've never seen before, and you have to pull up dictionary.com or whatever and type it in and figure out what it means. Right? That's the nature of learning. Okay, learning, I told this to the last class, I've said it a million times throughout my career. Think of your education as something like a savings account at the bank, all right? If you go to the bank and you say, hey, I'd like to take $2,000 out of my savings account, and the teller pulls up your savings account and says, well, you don't have $2,000, you have $2.18. You are not going to be able to pull out of your savings account what you did not put into your savings account. And your education works very much the same way, all right? Education takes work, it takes effort, and it's all individual. And that'll bring me to some other things that I want to talk about later about academic integrity and stuff like that, because you cannot get out of this class or any other class what you do not put into it. It just does not work that way, unfortunately. I wish I could tell you it did. All right, but it takes effort, and so keep that in mind. All right, moving forward here to the course outline. Let's talk a little bit about the course outline. Again, I'm not going to go into too much painstaking detail on this, except to say that at the bottom of that page there, I think we're on page 2 or 3 or something. What is this? I don't know, but where it says course outline, there's a couple of boxes there. Period 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, these 4 periods in the class, they correlate pretty closely actually with the breaking up of the quarters of the school year. So period 1 will take us from the start of the school year to about quarter 1 end, okay? Period 2 will be all of quarter 2. Period 3 will be all of quarter 3, not quite. And then period 4 will be, the very tail end of the school year right before the AP exam. So that's how the class is divided up, is roughly into these 4 sections. And as you can see there, the units are then further subdivided in each of them. So period 1 is unit 1, 2, and 3. Period 2 is unit 4, 5, 6, 7. Period 3 is unit 8, 9, 10. Period 4 is unit 11, 12, 13, and really it's just 13 because 14 I actually have kind of combined into 13 for streamlining's sake. Now, to break it up for you just a little bit more, to tell you a little bit about what we're going to be talking about, go ahead and scroll down to the next section where it says required reading for each unit listed in order. What this will tell you is not only what periods they are, but it tells you the chapters that are associated with each. Now, let me take a minute to tell you that as you look at unit 1 there, which is obviously the one that we're starting off with, we're going to be covering 2 chapters in this unit. Now, to be totally honest, Unit 1 is one of the more difficult ones, and it's difficult for a couple of different reasons. Number one, most of the units are only associated with 1 chapter. This one has 2, which means that there's going to be a little bit more reading that you have to do. All right? It's going to feel like a lot when we first get started here. All right? It's going to feel like a lot, and I sympathize and I understand it, but you have to understand that from my perspective, we have certain things that we have to do in here in order to stay on pace with what you're learning, so that I get you prepared in time for the AP exam. So the other thing that makes it difficult is this, and this is where I'm going to start talking just barely on the tip of the iceberg a little bit about history. So for those of you that may not be particularly historically inclined students, all right, students who, for one reason or another, you may not like history that much. You know what? It's not everybody's subject. I'm not trying to force anyone to like something that they hate. I do like to think that I have a pretty good rapport with students and that my reputation precedes me. One of the reasons that I'm here in my classroom right now is because that's part of the fun job for me, is interacting with students. And particularly on that first day, which for us will be on a day after tomorrow, on Thursday, one of my favorite things to do is to set up for you the class from a historical perspective. And it's a thing that essentially is about as close as we can get in a classroom experience to bringing you back in a time machine to introduce you to the extremely foreign world of the late Middle Ages. Now, when we talk about history, there's a phrase that we use a lot in history. The phrase is historical discourse. Now, that word discourse may be one that you've heard before but may not know what it means. All that word discourse means, when we say, for example, public discourse, All right. Public discourse could come in the form of a conversation at a coffee shop. It could come in the form of a political debate. It could come in a lot of different forms. But when we use that word discourse, we're talking about some sort of exchange of understandings or ideas. Okay. When we talk about historical discourse, what we're talking about is understandings within a particular period of time, right? So right now, all of us existing in this time right now, we are in a very unique historical discourse. All right, we're in this middle of this pandemic. We're in the middle of an extremely polarized political climate. We're in the middle of a period of time of extraordinarily advanced technology, brought about by the internet age, that are really uncharted waters in human history. All right. So if you were to imagine history as being a stream or a river, okay, and all of us right now are in the year 2020 within this long river that's been going back tens of thousands of years of human history, you might think to yourself, well, in 2020, here we are in the stream. How different could the stream be today from what it was just 500 or 600 years ago? Humans have been traipsing across the planet for 30,000 or more years. How different can it possibly be? And the answer is unbelievably different. If I was to pluck you out of where you are in the historical stream today, okay, no worries, Nahal, I just saw your message. The video will stay up. You can go back and watch it later at your own leisure, okay? All right, if I was to pick you out of where you're at in the stream today in 2020 and drop you back in the stream in the late Middle Ages, the 1300s, the stream would be so unbelievably unrecognizable to you. All right, the historical discourse of everything that you understand about the world today and how the world works today, how the world is, the discourse, if you will, of how our world works in 2020 would be so unbelievably foreign to you in the year 1350 that I would scarcely give you the odds that you would make it through the week. In other words, I don't know that you would survive even 1 week, maybe not even a few days in the 1300s based on your understanding of how the world works today. All right. The challenge, getting back to the whole point of what I'm trying to say here, the challenge of this first unit is to take you out of 2020 and introduce you to a brand new historical discourse that is going to seem foreign, backwards, stupid in some ways, brutal. It's going to be a real, it's like, honestly, you would probably feel more at home on the moon than you would on Earth in 1350. Okay, it is a completely different planet, and it's one that it's hard for a 10th grader to wrap their head around. Okay, so that's one of the challenges of this first unit, and we will be getting more into that on Thursday. All right. So you can see there the chapter listing on the syllabus for each of the different units. Scrolling down below that box, you can see the next thing. It says major topics covered each unit. So this gives you kind of, now this isn't every painstaking detail of the class, okay? This isn't every painstaking detail of the class. These are kind of big ideas for each of these units. Now, a syllabus is really a tool that helps you organize as both a professor, but as a student. And the coursework that's covered in the syllabus is really, it's a way, it's a schedule, it's a table of contents. Okay, I strongly suggest that you are mindful of that, not only for this class, but for all of your classes now, but especially in college, because your syllabus, I cannot tell you how important syllabi for each of my different classes were in my undergraduate and in my graduate degree, getting my master's in history over at Cal State Fullerton. I kept my syllabus, which was back then, they hand you a paper copy of it. You have a digital one available to you. I kept my syllabus and I would refer to that thing weekly, all right? Because the syllabus kept me on schedule the same way that it kept the professor on schedule. So I suggest that you use your syllabus, particularly this section of it, because what this section helps you do is it says you're in Unit 1. As you approach the end of Unit 1 and we're getting closer to the test, which I'll talk more about in a little bit here, as you get to the end and you look at Unit 1 and you read through that and you say, oh, I see humanism and scholasticism as a major topic from Unit 1, but I don't really feel comfortable with that. That's a key indicator for you to say, boy, if I don't know what those terms are, I should probably go back and put a little bit of time focusing on what they are so that when I come in and take this test, I know what I'm talking about, right? This is a way for you to, almost like a checklist, for you to be able to say, okay, do I understand the different things that are going to be covered in this unit? Now, of course, you're going to read through that list and none of them you're not going to know any of them now, but we're only on the first day. So, closer to the test, as we get closer and closer, hopefully you can be reading through that and say, okay, yeah, I remember covering that in class, but be honest with yourself about it, all right? All right, and there's one for each. Again, I'm not going to read it for you. You can read it on your own time. I have limited time with you here, but you can go through each of those as we go through and just to be mindful that it is there and it is available to you. As you continue to scroll down on your syllabus, there are certain things that I need to include on the syllabus for College Board. Primary resources. There's a whole bunch of primary resources that we're going to be utilizing in class. And you don't have to worry about those. I will be supplying those to you on the live lectures and so on and so forth. Same with the secondary resources. As we continue to scroll down there, you can see each unit. I kind of have pre-selected several secondary resources that we'll be able to use, again, to help you make better sense of the history and the context and give you practice with analyzing documents and extracting important information. One of the phrases that I sometimes use is reading against the grain. In woodworking, if you're working with a block of wood, okay, there's a grain of the wood. And if you run your hand with the grain of the wood is nice and smooth. But if you run your hand against the grain, you're going to get slivers and stuff like that in your fingers, okay? When I say read against the grain, what I'm talking about is read against the text. In other words, reading between the lines, okay? Being questioning of what you're reading, not being passive about what you're being told, okay? If you just read something and you take it as written, as truthful or as honest or as accurate, you're not reading against the grain. One of the goals of this class to get you to be a critical thinker is when you read something to ask yourself, is this trustworthy? Is this something that I can look at and take it as this person is being honest, or maybe this person's deceiving me, or maybe this person has an agenda, or et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that's another skill that you're going to develop in the class. All right, let's talk a little bit about the grading scale. Pretty standard grading scale, 90, 80, 70, 60, 90 and above is an A, 80 to 90 is a B, so on and so forth. All right, that's there for you. And then you go down to just below the page break there where it says breakdown of grading system. If you're following along on your syllabus as I go through this here. Breakdown of the grading system. Let's talk about this. I'm a person who likes to have my life in order, okay? Particularly my professional life. I value having structure, organization, predictability, because I think it works well for kids, all right? My class doesn't have a whole lot of curveballs, okay? It's pretty predictable. And I don't do a lot of wacky, weird stuff that's going to require you to create a bunch of different accounts and so on and so forth. Um, and each unit kind of is going to unfold the same way. I find that to be even more important now that we are in this remote scenario, to keep things nice and predictable and doable for students, so that as you go throughout the class, you don't feel like you're constantly barely treading water and keeping your head above water. I want to make sure that you guys are nice and aware of what's coming down the pike. All right, so let's talk how this works. Each unit lasts roughly 2 to 3 weeks. Some of the units are a little longer, some of the units are a little shorter. Each unit will be comprised of several in-class and online assignments, as well as a test. Your final grade is determined by the total number of points you earned in the class divided by the total number of points possible in the class. Now, talking about points, I know kids are always freaking out about points. All right, kids freak out about points. Mr. Knight, my grade, my test points, this, that, the other points. Okay, in my class, for the most part, points are just points. It doesn't matter where you get your points, whether you're getting them from the tests, whether you're getting them from assignments, whether you're getting them from discussions, or what have you. Okay, the points are mostly a 1-to-1 ratio. So a point on a test, for the most part, is going to be equal to a point on anything else. The only exception to that is on written assignments like DBQs, SAQs, things like that. All right. And the reason is because those ones have a very strict rubric that I have to grade on that is used by College Board on the exam. And so when those go in the grade book, it'll look like, oh, this DBQ was only worth 7 points, but those are the only assignments that I will weigh. Okay, so those are the only things that are weighed more than other things in the grade book. And that's just to make sure that it gets the proper impact on the overall percentage makeup of the exam itself. So in other words, like of the exam score, 2/3 of the exam is your multiple choice test sometimes, 1/3 of the exam is the written section, whatever. Okay, it doesn't matter what the breakdown is. The point is to say to make it so that it weighs enough so that it has an impact if you do well on it or whatever. Okay, so DBQs are the only exception. Assignments can range anywhere from 10 to 50 points. Typically, assignments are less points depending on how much time it takes you to complete it. Tests will obviously be worth more points, typically averaging around 150 points each. And by the end of the semester, your final grade is roughly about 65% determined by your test performance and 35% determined by homework, online quizzes, and various other assignments. So your tests are definitely important, but they're not the only thing that's important, because if you're not doing the other work, you can't do well on the exams. All right. So at this time, we're gonna segue directly into talking a little bit about the tests, what to expect on the tests, what the tests look like, how they're graded, et cetera, et cetera. Here we go. Each test will be a condensed version of the AP European History exam. To help you better practice for the AP test, every test will contain what's called a stimulus-based multiple choice section of anywhere between 25 and 50 questions. It kind of depends on the size of the unit that we're in. If it's a bigger unit, there may be more questions. If it's a smaller unit, there may be fewer questions, right? But when I say it's stimulus-based, the way that works is you're given like a map or a passage, a reading passage. It could be an advertisement. It could be all sorts of different, any sort of historical stimulus, okay? And your job is going to be to analyze that stimulus using the various analytical techniques that I'll be teaching you as you move throughout the year to start to build some context around that stimulus. In other words, it's not a reading comprehension test. It's not like the standardized tests for California where it'll be a question like, what did the author mean when he said the word whatever on line 60? Okay, that's not the kind of test that it is. It's not a reading comprehension. What it is it's a historical test, right? So you get something, there'll be probably a source at the bottom, and what you go to work doing is analyzing that to say, okay, when did this happen? Who probably put this out? who was writing it, what were the biases of the person that was writing it, and how does it fit into the surrounding context of other things that were going on at that time. And the questions will probably be pertaining to some of that surrounding context stuff. So it's a test that's designed to deliberately to get you to think, all right? Now, the other side about this test that you need to be aware of is that it's not the only section. So for that stimulus, you'll have maybe 3-4 questions for that stimulus, then you'll get a new stimulus, 3-4 questions for that one until you get to about 25 total questions, and then it'll be a new section of the test, all right? The other sections of the test are writing sections. Now, there's 3 different writing sections, all right? The first writing section is called a DBQ. What this stands for is document-based question. On a DBQ, what you will do is you will get a set of 7 documents, and once again, you'll go to work analyzing all those documents, reading through them, coming up with evidence from those documents, and when you get done reading those documents, you'll have a prompt. And that prompt will ask you a question that your answer to that will be the thesis statement of the essay that you write. And the thesis statement will be based on the documents that you just got done reading. And again, I don't expect you to know how to do any of this right now. All right, that's why you're in this class, is so that you can learn how to do this stuff. But it's really going to help you as you go not only through the rest of high school, but into your college careers and professional life, to be able to read things with a discerning eye, right? And start to come up with evidence and argumentation, right? History is about making arguments. And the only way we can make good arguments is to come up with good evidence to support those arguments. And that is the purpose of a DBQ. So it's essentially, excuse me, it's essentially a 5-paragraph essay where you are going to be creating a historical argument in your thesis statement, in your introductory paragraph, talking about kind of big ideas, all right? And then in each of your body paragraphs, breaking up those big ideas and supporting those big ideas with individual specific pieces of evidence that you will have pulled from those documents that you just got done reading. So that's what a DBQ is. Okay, LEQ stands for long essay question. Really, an LEQ is no longer than a DBQ is. But the reason that it's different is because unlike the DBQ, where you have a set of documents that you're able to use to give you the evidence, on an LEQ, the evidence comes from right up in here. And usually LEQ questions will be broader questions and a little bit easier to answer with slightly less specificity than a DBQ. Okay, a DBQ is going to be pretty specific, but you also have documents that you can work with. An LEQ, you don't have any documents, you have to rely on your knowledge, but the question will be a little bit easier for you to tackle. But it's essentially the same thing. Same idea, it's just doing it without documents and only using your brain. Okay, so you're writing, again, an argument, you're supporting that argument with evidence, and you write an essay on it. All right, and then the last writing section is called an SAQ, which stands for short answer question. As the name implies, they are shorter. You will get 3 SAQs on the AP exam. Each of those 3 will have basically 3 sub-questions. So think of it as almost like 3, 3, and 3, all right? For a total of 9 points, we'll say, right? And so the SAQ is like a shortened version of a DBQ. Instead of writing an entire essay for each of those, you're essentially writing like 2 to 3 sentences per like deal, you know, like, so 2 to 3 sentences each. So your first SAQ would be like maybe a total of 8 to 10 sentences, okay? And then like, you know, each one after that about the same. So that's how the SAQ works. And again, I'm not going to get into all the details of how to do that right now because I don't have the time for it. But rest assured that by the time that you do your first one, we're going to do some practice ones together and stuff like that. By the time that we get to doing our first graded one, you're going to be perfectly comfortable with how to go about tackling each of these things, okay? DBQs, SAQs, and so on. I'm just trying to explain to you kind of what to expect on how these tests are formulated. Now, when we do tests on Canvas for the remote section of school, it's going to be online. And I need to talk to you a little bit about this. It will not be all 4 sections every single time. There will always be a multiple choice section, okay? There will always be a multiple choice section, but I will switch up depending on what unit we're in. Sometimes I'll do an SAQ, sometimes I'll do a DBQ. You're not going to do all 4 sections every single test. That would be extremely burdensome, and we just don't have time for that. It would take forever. So, but you'll know what you're going to do before you take the test. Okay. All right. It's going to be online. Until we come back to a traditional classroom setting, the tests are going to have to be given online. Now, I know that I'm old, okay, or at least a lot older than you are, but I'm not so old that I didn't grow up with the internet, okay? I grew up with the internet from the time that I was very young, still in grade school, okay? I didn't graduate high school until 2002, and I went to college in an internet era. I know very well the pressures that are put on high achieving students, okay? And I know the pressure to get good grades. I know the pressure put on you by parents and friends and teachers and so on. And I understand it entirely. But we need to have an honest conversation about the temptations to use outside resources, okay, when you take a test, okay? The tests that I give in this class are notoriously and deliberately difficult, all right? Why do you do it that way, Mr. Knight? It's not that it's so difficult to pass the test. The reason that I have to make the test difficult is because if I made the test a slam dunk for everyone, I'm not getting an accurate measure, right? My job is to determine for the entire class and every individual in the class to say, okay, here's where people struggled. We need to go back and review that. Here's where people did really well. And here's where people were kind of in the middle. If everybody's getting 90% and above raw score on the exam, that is going to send alarm bells off because I know my tests very well. I've been teaching this class for a while now. And if everybody's getting 90% and higher on their raw score on their exam, Houston, we have a problem. All right. In the famous words of Jim Lowell, one of the astronauts in the Apollo 13 mission that nearly did not make it home. All right. So I will tell you right now, when you take tests in this class for the multiple choice section, I'm looking at averages that should come in between about 50 to 60%. Okay. Now, I'm not telling you to do deliberately badly on the test. What I'm telling you is do not cheat on the test. Okay. Cheating is not going to help you, and it's not going to help your peers. And the reason it's not going to help your peers comes down to a very simple thing. I know the tests are difficult. The tests are made difficult so that I can separate the wheat from the chaff. In other words, the people that I know are doing really, really well, and the people that I know are slacking off and not doing what they need to be doing. All right. Let's say that we took a test and the average score on the multiple choice section was a 55%. That doesn't mean that everybody fails. Okay. I use what's called standard deviation to come up with a normal curve so that everybody as an individual is compared against the average. So what ends up happening if the test average is 55%, that 55% gets turned into 75%. And now if you were in the average, you now have a C on the test. Perfectly doable, okay? And that's not going to destroy your GPA because there are other things that are offered in the class to offset that and bring you up to B, possibly even A level if you can manage to do, better on future tests. All right. So if you cheat on it and the test average comes out to be 72%, what that now means is that the curve is way smaller than it was before, right? So what's going to happen then is the curve isn't going to help you. It's not going to help you anymore. In fact, if the curve goes above 75%, it's not going to hurt you, but you're going to end up with your raw score on the test. And I don't want to do that because the raw score is really not what I want to grade you on. Okay, so please, 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 as you take these tests, and we're doing them online, do not cheat on them. And trust me, it's going to raise alarm bells immediately in my brain if you do. Okay, I'm really good at figuring this stuff out. For first period today, I had a former student named Paul, who's a senior, who dropped in for a couple minutes as I was talking about this. And he brought up that I found out that an entire class cheated on a day that I wasn't even there, and I found out about it. I was absent the day that they took the test. And so please, 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 I wasn't born yesterday. I know how much pressure you're under, but being honest and working hard is absolutely the best route that you can take, even if the test result is something where you feel like, oh man, I wish I would have done better. I would rather have you say, I wish I would have done better, than to say in the future, I wish I wouldn't have cheated. All right. So keep that in mind. Okay. Late work. A couple of things on late work. I'm going to do my best to be clear on this. As you know, I've said several times now, my schedule is very, very, very complicated, okay? And every single bit of late work that I receive complicates my schedule, complicates my schedule exponentially. Because I have to go back, I have to find the assignment, I have to grade the assignment, I have to find you in the grade book, it takes way longer than if it's just done on time. So here's how we're going to handle, for the remote segment of the class, here's how we're going to handle late work. Everything that you are assigned on Canvas will have two dates. There will be a due date and there will be a close date. The due date is when the assignment is due. You must hand that assignment in before the due date in order to get full credit on that assignment. The close date is the last possible date to hand in the assignment at all for late credit. If you do not do the late assignment by the time that the close date comes and the assignment closes on Canvas, it is not going to reopen and it will go in as a 0 in the gradebook. Now, late work, you have about a week after it's due to get it done, all right? The way that we're going to be doing this, all right, is as follows. If you miss a due date and you hand it in during the but you make the close dates, you still hand it in before the assignment closes, you can still receive up to 80% credit on the assignment. So that's a B-. That's not going to destroy your grade. Okay? So to entice you to try to get that late work in before the assignment closes, I'm giving you 80%. Okay, if we get a bad score on a test, is on a bad score on an assignment or on a test? Tests, absolutely not. Assignments, yes, you can. I'll just say that right now. Okay, tests cannot retake tests. There's no test retakes. First time, only time. And that has to do, there's a reason for that. It has to do with calculating the scores correctly for the class. Okay, but there are test corrections, which are assignments that will count for credit. And although it won't add to your test score, it will add to your total grade so long as you do them. Okay, so, and do them on time. All right, so that's that. Okay, any other questions at this time? Comments, concerns? I've been kind of talking for a while, but there's some other stuff that I do need to talk about. Paul is correct. It is important to do test corrections. Okay, if you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat box there, and I will get to them. AP European History exam is on Friday, May 7th, 2021 at high noon. So that is the time where we will take the test. Okay, couple things before we move on here. I talked to you about, I just want to make sure that I've done this. Go over syllabus, check, did that. Calendar, talk to you about that. There will be a calendar made available to you on Canvas as soon as I am able. AP exam, we talked about the different sections of the AP exam, and I also told you about how my tests are scored. Your first exam in this class, I did not tell you, but I'm going to tell you right now. Your first test for AP European History will be on Monday, August 31st. First test, Monday, August 31. Okay, first exam, August 31st. That is a Monday. Now, that test is going to be on the late Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Something for you to know. The late Middle Ages will not be information that is covered on the actual AP exam. The reason for that is because the AP exam only goes back to 1450 in terms of the year range. So they are not able to ask you any questions that happened before 1450. So how come, Mr. Knight, then we're spending any time at all talking about the late Middle Ages? The reason is because the late Middle Ages is succeeded by the Renaissance. And if you don't understand the historical context of the late Middle Ages, you're not going to be able to understand how the Renaissance was a break away from the Middle Ages. So one of the key things about understanding why the Renaissance is important at all is to be able to say, well, here's what changed in the Renaissance from the era that preceded it, and that's why we need to talk about the late Middle Ages. So just so that you know that, even though you're going to have to do work to read about the late Middle Ages, you're going to have to answer questions on the late Middle Ages and so on, it will not actually show up on the real AP exam. However, the other thing that we're covering in this will, and that is the Renaissance, right? The Renaissance is a very, very, very important thing to start off this class with, because it's a major change in thinking, it's a major change in art, and also we start to see some changes in religion and trade and other things like that. So we'll talk about the Renaissance extensively. All right. One other thing I want to mention about this class that I think is a misconception of it that I want to clear up. I hope that you don't think that when we're taking European history that we're only going to be talking about Europe. It's very important in our modern context to understand that we're living in a time where more than ever, people are very socially aware and sensitive, and there's a lot of pressure or push for diversity. Do we need a composition book for this class? You do not need a composition book for this class. Although if you'd like to take notes, I would suggest that you do that, but you can do that on a computer. You don't need like a notebook or something. All right. Good question. Thank you for that. Getting back to what I was saying, we're in a time where there's been some pressure, some revision of looking at history from a lens that is not just simply Eurocentric, okay? Now, the name of the class is European History. I get that, all right? I understand that. And we are going to be focusing a lot on Europe, okay, as a global historical force. In some sense, there's kind of no getting around that. I'm not devaluing other global histories. But I also want you to know that we're not only talking about Europe here. You cannot tell the story of European history without also telling the stories of all of the other folks around the globe that Europeans interacted with. So we will be talking about China. We will be talking about Africa. We will be talking about Native American populations, all right? These are the sorts of interactions globally that Europeans had throughout the last 600 years, going back to Columbus and the Age of Exploration. So the class is very globally oriented, and I do suspect that you will be learning about histories from other places, particularly from the context of how Europe went to those places and probably ruined them. Okay, now let's move on to talking about what you're doing for Thursday. Okay, and this will be the last thing that I cover, because I'm going to utilize the remainder of the class time to, as quickly as I can, get the reading posted for you in a PDF format, so that you can start on your reading and start answering the questions. Hello there. Okay. Okay. So your first reading assignment. Oh, hey, Manal, what's up? Your first reading assignment is going to be, and I will type this right here, reading assignment, page 299 to 315. Okay, reading assignment, page 299 to 315. Okay, I am going to put that available to you on Canvas just as soon as I'm able. As soon as I sign off this thing, I'm going to turn it into a PDF and I will put that on there. Do get a textbook though. Don't forget to pick up a textbook as soon as you're able, because you will use them. Paul, I'm not even going to indulge that with an answer. Now, okay, reading guides. All right, reading guides. Oh man, I kind of wish that we were back in class right now. Well, I am back in class, I guess, but I wish the students were here too. Okay, now let's talk reading guides. Now, normally, the way that this class works is, really, this is the first day of class. Look at the impression that you're setting on these other students here. Look at this. Look at this. Paul, be quiet. Now, normally what I used to do is I would assign all work on the first day of the unit, give you the entire unit, okay, and then everything would be due on the day of the exam. And the reason for that is because students, particularly AP students and STEM students, have very complicated schedules. You've got practices, you've got clubs you're involved with, you've got band, you've got all sorts of different things, okay, that you do, or maybe even hold a job or whatever else, help mom out at the shop, whatever it is, okay? People have complicated schedules, I get it. Because we are not in school, and because those clubs are not meeting, and because I am not going to do it the same way that I've done it in years past, all right? Instead, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be breaking it up for you so that you have day-by-day things that you need to do. I don't necessarily really like it this way, to be honest with you, because it actually creates more work for me as well. But I am bound to the agreement that was come up with between teachers, administration, the district, and so on, the powers that be, to update the grade book every time we have a class, essentially daily, okay? Or every other day, all right? So I am required to give you stuff where I can be updating your grade on a regular basis. It's not an option, I have to do that, all right? And so what I'm going to do, instead of just throwing the reading guide at you and saying, do it on your own, each day I'm going to be breaking off sections of questions and having you answer them on the reading guide, okay? That's very kind of you, Paul. I actually really do appreciate that. That's very kind of you. I try to do a good job, you know? I try to do a good job. Now, so for today, for Thursday, actually, have it done by the time that we meet on Thursday, which will be what, 9:08 on Thursday morning. Okay, so it will be due then. The close date will happen a week after that, but have it done by then. All right. First assignment is read pages 299 through 315, 299 through 315. I will put the reading up on Canvas, and then do the questions that I give you on Canvas. Mr. Knight, how do we do them? You can do them on, how about this? You can do them on Google Docs and give me a link. If you want to type them on Word and upload a document, that's fine too. Or I think that it even gives you a thing just to type it in there and do it that way. So, but as long as I have them, that's the important thing. If you do a Google Doc, please understand that you need to make sure that you share it with me. Otherwise, if I can't see it, I can't grade it, okay? And I really appreciate, thank you, Manal and Paul, for bringing these things up, like the test correction thing that Paul mentioned earlier, and what Manal just said about the reading guides. The reading guides absolutely 100% will help you. It goes back to that thing that I was telling you about earlier with you can't get out of it what you don't put into it. If you're copying your friends' answers, if you're not doing the work yourself and so on and so forth, number one, I'll probably catch you. There's only 18 kids in the class, okay? Number two, it's not going to help you at all, okay? If you're not doing your own reading, if you're not doing your own questions, you're not going to be learning anything. And when you're expected to pull out and extract information from your brain on the exam, it won't be there. So please, please, please be mindful of that, right? And set yourself up for success. Remember that your education is not for your parents. Your education's not for me. Your education's not for your peers. Your education is for you, okay? So make it your responsibility and try and get something out of it. All right, where will we find the reading for this class? As I said, it will be put up onto Canvas until you get your textbooks, which for some people won't be until next Monday, okay? So until Monday at least, okay, I will be putting up the reading assignments, okay? They're not up yet. I still have to make them because I didn't realize kids didn't have their textbooks yet, but that's just the way things go. All right, so at this time, I'm about ready to be done talking for the day. I've given you the reading assignment. I told you about the reading guides. Any other questions, comments, concerns for the good of the group? If it's an individual thing, you can message me on Canvas and I'll handle it later. Anything for the good of the group? If not, I just want to say I so appreciate all of you, including former students, coming in and listening to me today. Do I have a remind? Oh, yes, thank you. I do have a remind. I haven't set it up yet. I'm going to be making an announcement about that today. In fact, let me make a remind about remind. I will set that up today, and it'll be on Canvas for you in an announcement, and you'll be able to sign into it. How's Mochi and Harrison? Mochi and Harrison are great. For those of you new to the class, Mochi and Harrison are my two cats at home. I have two cats, and they are doing fantastic. So, and yeah, and Manal really hates Harrison. So, which is really sad because Harrison's very, very sweet, even though he is fat and ugly. All right, folks, very good. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in, and I look forward to interacting with you guys as we go throughout the course. And I really hope that we are able to come back to school in a traditional setting because, boy, that would be that'd be a lot more fun than sitting and looking at a bunch of chairs on the desks. So, Paul, I know I have you again, but I think that's isn't it tomorrow? I'm pretty sure that's tomorrow. All right. So, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of the day. See you again on Thursday.